When most children run away or are abducted, it doesn't take very long for them to be discovered or rescued. However, the case of Asha Degree remains unsolved to this day, even though she went missing over 19 years ago. The best outcome in a situation like this is that she ran away to start a new life and is perfectly fine somewhere out there. However, some unsettling evidence that was discovered relating to her paints a different picture of what might have happened, and it's not a pretty picture. This is the disappearance of Asha Degree. Asha Jaquila Degree was born on August 5th, 1990. She lived in North Carolina and lived quite a strict but tame life. Her parents both worked long 9-to-5 jobs, so their children usually let themselves in after school and had a few hours each day once home to finish their homework, do their chores, etc., with their parents expecting their demands met by the time they return home. Asha's parents sheltered her from all devices and media and outside influences, which meant no television, video games, or comic books. The reason for this being that Asha's mother was concerned about outside influences corrupting her family's morals, and that internet predators lurked online constantly, waiting for their next victim. Asha's life revolved entirely around her church, schoolwork, and large extended family. However, from an outsider's perspective, Asha appeared to be fine with all of this and never put up a fight when it came to the set of rules her parents set. She never had liked going outside either, as she had an abnormal fear of dogs. She was well liked by her peers, and to the average Joe, she seemed like a perfect kid. On February 13th, 2000, when Asha was only 9 years old, her family went to church and then returned home later that day. Everything seemed to be going fine and dandy as per usual. Her mother and father were at work and came home around 8 p.m. Her father went to check on her around that time to make sure she was in bed, as it was her bedtime. And lo and behold, his children were all in their rooms, sound asleep. Later that night, Harold Degree, the father, heard Asha's bed squeak loudly from his bedroom once or twice, but he didn't pay it much attention because he assumed she was simply changing sleep positions or going to the bathroom. Had Harold have checked on Asha after hearing this video wouldn't exist. Asha was in this moment packing a few of her things quietly in a backpack, before she then, for reasons unknown, left her house, only to never return, completely unbeknownst to Harold. Asha was seen by a truck driver at around 3 to 4 in the morning, walking down Highway 18 by herself, in a strong storm, an incredibly dangerous thing for a child to be doing. The truck driver thought it was incredibly odd that a little girl would be out by herself at this time of night, and he circled her a few times to get a closer look. Asha noticed what was going on and eerily ran as fast as she could into the woods alongside the highway and disappeared from the trucker's vision. A few hours later, at around 6 in the morning, Asha's mother got up to start a bath for her children as to prepare them for their day at school. However, when she went to Asha's room to wake her up, she discovered that she was missing. She looked everywhere around the house, including inside of her car. Once the realization of what might have happened hit her, she immediately alerted Harold, who then suggested that she may or may not be at a relative's house. However, when they called said relatives, Asha was nowhere to be seen. Asha's parents went into panic mode and immediately phoned police. At around 7 a.m., police officers had arrived to the Degree household with a canine unit. However, to make this case even eerier, the canine unit couldn't pick up Asha's smell, which made them useless in this situation. Coincidentally, like I mentioned earlier, Asha hated dogs. Doesn't have any relevance to the case, but it's still pretty weird to think about. Police had absolutely no leads and had no idea what to do, but they searched the nearby perimeter the best they could. A few days later, on February 15th, in an open shed near where she was seen fleeing into the woods, a few belongings of Asha's had been found, including a hairbow, markers, and a pencil. This still gave no leads to police, but did hint that Asha may possibly be close. It also sparked a new fear that perhaps Asha had been kidnapped, as it didn't make sense that she'd leave these things behind unless in a struggle. Police found that Asha had packed a few of her favorite things with her in her backpack, which aided the investigation because it was determined that Asha was definitely a runaway. Asha being a runaway is strange for a number of reasons, with the most jarring one being that she was only 9 years old. Along with this, her getaway was oddly well planned, as it was obvious she didn't want to be found. The Degree family had a few appearances on television, with the most prominent one being during a segment on the Oprah Winfrey Show.
Years after a Shelby girl went missing, and the community is still not giving up hope. Asha Degree's picture is now on the side of some trucks in Catawba County, serving as a reminder for people to keep an eye out for the missing girl. Asha was last seen walking on Highway 18 in February of 2000.
About a year later, a construction worker working on a project near Highway 18 dug up a plastic bag which eerily contained Asha's backpack, along with a few other belongings. This was the last piece of evidence that would ever be discovered relating to Asha. This disturbing discovery led people to believe that Asha was kidnapped and possibly slain, and that this recent discovery was originally the work of someone who was trying to hide evidence of their involvement with Asha. Investigators did eventually get new leads stating that Asha might have gotten into a Lincoln Continental Mark IV the night of her disappearance, which would most likely confirm that Asha was either abducted or turned into a human trafficking victim. Years later, investigators have now offered a reward of up to $20,000 for information relating to the arrest of whomever might have abducted or aided Asha. This case is not dead, even to this day, with investigators still looking for leads and discussing the case frequently, as recent as October of last year, as new information relating to some belongings she had with her had been released to the public. A few fake renders of Asha as an adult have been made as well. What's eerie about this is that Asha could have possibly passed away years ago, long before adulthood even, meaning that this realistic, happy, smiling young adult woman you see on the screen may have never even existed. Police also ruled out any foul play from the family, as after a thorough investigation took place, it was deemed incredibly improbable that Asha's family did anything to her. Overall, this case is incredibly creepy and rare. It almost seems as if it'd be impossible for something like this to occur today, due to technological advancement. If a child attempted this in 2018, they would most likely be found very shortly after disappearing. As soon as they left their house, they probably would be recorded by a Ring doorbell camera or something, and even if that wasn't the case, they definitely get picked up by a CCTV camera, or God forbid they brought their phone with them, which would literally instantaneously give away their exact coordinates. Unlike other stories discussed on this channel, this one has no moral and no resolution, as they aren't really looking for Asha anymore, and seem to actually be focusing on nailing down a suspect who may or may not have resulted in Asha's disappearance. Though Asha's parents fully expect her to walk through the door any day, which is pretty saddening to hear from my perspective, because the likelihood of that happening is almost next to none. Thanks for watching my video on the disappearance of Asha Degree. If you liked it, press the like button, subscribe, and possibly turn on post notifications. Videos release frequently.